2,000 years ago, the island world of the Pacific was uninhabited. The forefathers of today's islanders lived near the coast of southeastern Asia. Massive movements of peoples from the interior of Asia pushed these Stone Age islanders into the sea. Those who were dispossessed set out in small, separate parties into the unknown Pacific, seeking land. Without instruments, they sailed their canoes for thousands of miles in search for a land they did not know, but hoped to find. Most of the explorers must have perished at sea. Fortunate ones found the tiny scattered islands of the Marianas, the Carolines, the Marshalls, the Gilberts, the island world of Micronesia. There they settled, planted crops, and multiplied. But the migration continued until again population pressure drove some to move on into the Pacific, on to Polynesia. Others stayed behind, and their descendants today occupy the far-flung Caroline Islands. In the eastern Carolines, a vast, empty sea whose occasional tiny islands are so unimportant to the world that their very names are unknown, is the atoll of Mokil. Mokil consists of 3 islets set on a coral reef. The total land surface is some 300 acres, little more than that of a good-sized golf course, and nearly all the land is less than 15 feet above sea level. Yet today, 1,000 years or more after its discovery, 425 people gain their whole livelihood from this tiny atoll and the surrounding sea. And no longer can people move on to discover new lands.
Our land came from under the water. For thousands of years, the little coral animals have lived here and died, as we too live and die here. The coral formed our land and built our reef. And within this reef, we found shelter from the open sea. We live on the reef as well as on the land, for here there are many fish to be caught. Cross the barrier reef to reach our village. We live close together in our village. Our canoe houses are built along the edge of the lagoon away from the ocean. Canoe houses to protect our canoes from the burning sun, but also places to live, to work, and to sleep. Every family on Mokil owns its own canoe house. Our children are many, and each year their numbers increase until sometimes we wonder where they will find room. Our land is so small. They swim as early as they learn to walk, and there is no moment when they start to sail. Abraham has brought home the deep sea meat, the bonito. The breadfruit is ripe, ready for harvest. and the king and queen gather their own. Breadfruit and taro. These are the two chief foods of our land. Grass must be brought to fertilize the taro patch. Breadfruit and other fruit grow in the coconut forest and don't require much care. But taro, our food of honor, the sacred food of feasts, is hard to cultivate. That muck is the labor of many generations. We have to build the taro land, bringing loam and grass to the swamp, or even digging out the rocky soil that we may have more and more taro, for the need is great. Few of us own enough taro land. The man who owns much taro land is a big man. Bila cuts off the taro root and puts back the stem to grow again. Most of our food comes from the land or the sea. But sometimes we hunt the tern in the forest. This is the only thing we hunt. We use the sticky sap of the breadfruit tree to catch the bird. That's Purnell bleeding the tree. He has picked a young tree fresh with sap. He knows every tree, every plant on Mokil, when it took seed and when it will give fruit. No one knows the trick of catching the tern better than Purnell. Purnell and Ruth are thickening the glue. They cool the glue with bits of coral. Now the glue is strong, ready for the stick. Watch your stick. We do not always catch the tern for food. Sometimes we take them when they are young and give them to the children for pets. Everyone in the village bathes morning and evening. During the trade winds, there is little rain to be caught, and it is then that we must use the brackish water of our shallow wells. The children are in the way. They share the way. There are almost more children than grown-ups. How do we bring them up? During a year or two, while they're at the breast, we give them everything. But then one day we take them from the breast and give them things to do. They cry, they have tantrums. So it must be. We accustom them to the hard work of our people. Scissors cuts paper. Paper covers stone. Stone breaks scissors. Foreign games. The children take care of the children. They play and work and share in the work. Play and work stream together. Coconut, that's the king, because that's the thing we trade. It has many uses, and we plant it wherever it will grow. The water of the green coconut is good to drink. Its flesh is tender food, food for our young. We use the ripe coconut too. We cook with the cream pressed from the flesh of the ripe coconut. It is poured over the breadfruit to give it flavor. Even our chickens and pigs feed on the coconut. We are close to the land, for the land gives us food and shelter, and from early childhood we learn the way of the land. How to take the sugar from a coconut tree, how to make a basket from a coconut frond. Each morning and evening, Purnell gathers the juice of the coconut bud from which he makes molasses to sweeten his food. Among us, everyone can do many things, and there is men's work, women's work, and children's work. The man who has skill, isn't he a big man, one to honor? But we take our skill for granted, and if a man has no land, he is not a big man. We have lost many things of the early days. Our religion has come to us from across the sea. We no longer have art, and our music is that of the missionaries. But what may be done by skill and industry, that you will find on Mokil. That is our life, the life we know. This bud can no longer produce coconut. But we need the molasses, and Purnell, as every other man on Mokil, must sacrifice the coconut from one or more trees if he is to have the sweet juice for his food. Ruth is cutting down the big fruit of the pandanus. So it is. We go into the forest with nothing, and by hard labor and the many skills of Mokil, we take from the forest the things we need. A basket and fruit, and the sweet juice of the coconut bud. Ruth scrapes the pulp of the pandanus free from the many fibers. Not all of the fruit is cooked. Some we chew for its sweetness. The other we mix with our taro and our breadfruit to give them flavor. The panini of Nat Benjamin is preparing breadfruit for the storage pit. The panini is a real cooperative family. The father and the sons and their families, or the brothers and their families, or the uncles and nephews and their families. The men, women, and children all work together for the common good of the panini. Sometimes 3 or 4 generations, 30 or 40 people. A man is known by the panini to which he belongs. If it is large and rich, we look up to him. He must be heard. If his panini is poor, he dare not speak in public meeting. Nat Benjamin is respected. His panini has 11 acres of land and many breadfruit for the storage pit. Soaking the breadfruit in the salt water. Beating it to soften the flesh. In 2 days, it will form a mash ready for the pit. The briny pulp of the breadfruit goes into the pit, but this is only the beginning. The new breadfruit will soon spoil if the dry leaves that line the pit are not replaced within a week. During the first month, the leaves must be changed several times until we know that the breadfruit is safe. After that, it will keep for months and years. The pit breadfruit is covered with a mat made of the dry leaves of the pandanus tree. The women of the panini make these mats for the use of the panini. Ruth is 16, and she knows all the arts that belong to a woman of Mokil. In half a day, she could make a mat that will last for many months. She holds the middle strand with her toe, and her fingers are adept. In the panini, we exchange our labor freely and share in everything we have. We do it for love or duty, for we are kin. And if we like a man, even if he is not kin, we say, he belongs to my panini. Sometimes we exchange our labor between paninis. Lumbering and sawing is heavy work, too much for the men of a single panini. It is better to have the help of many men that the work may be done quickly. We form companies to do heavy work. But this isn't like the work we do for our own panini. This is by contract. Each man in a company must give a day's work to every other man in his turn, or send a friend or a relative or pay a fine of 50 cents. 50 cents, the value of a man's labor for a day. Some of us think this isn't the old way. A man likes to help his friends. Why must we make rules? Why must we measure out the labor? Today we work for Joram, and Joram sets the pace. There are many boards to cut. We use Japanese saws. They keep the line straight. It used to be that the men stood around more and talked. But now each man must finish 7 boards in a day, and we compete. It is Joram's day, and his panini must feed the company. He calls on all his kin to help, to give all they can. The breadfruit, long preserved, comes out of the pit. Akar has gone to her food reserve to help Joram, for they are related, and his panini has many men to feed. She must wash it clean of brine before it can be eaten. Matches by trade, but we still know how to make fire with the fire plow. A few years ago, when the trading people were fighting a war and did not visit us, we again plowed our fires from the heart of the wood. The women of Joram's panini are building their earth ovens. These ovens must be carefully prepared if they are to burn, and the gravel made hot for cooking. The women will spend a long time here, gathering food, preparing food. Joram's land is small, and he is always afraid that there might not be enough food, enough to feed his friends, to be generous, to command respect. We cook on the heated gravel and imprison in leaves and baskets the heat of the fire and the flavor of the food. More and more taro for the fire. What will Joram have left? And someday he will be called upon to help his kin who have given today. The fish don't matter. There are always plenty of fish. But what of the breadfruit and taro, the things of the land? Joram will feel his loss, and some men will say he was foolish to give so much. And they will even speak about it in public meeting. And again, we will agree not to make such a show of our food, to compete with one another. But still, every man is afraid of what his neighbor will think. He is afraid that some will secretly speak against him, say that he is not generous, that he keeps his food for himself. Joram must be generous. There must be more food than the men of his company can eat. He will be known by what is left after the feast, by the amount that the workers take home. When we thatch the roof of a canoe house, then all Mokil works as one community. All the paninis of Mokil, men, women, and children. The work that children work at with a will, tearing down and making a heap. The thatch is old. For our canoe houses, we must have the finest thatch. Our canoes must be safe from the weather. Our women make the thatch from the leaves of the pandanus. 25, 50, or even more pieces of thatch are given by each panini. They are given freely, but no one forgets that they have been given, and that someday they will be returned. Because our roofs and the protection of our canoes are the common concern of all Mokil, if a man's canoe house needs thatching, to his help comes all Mokil, with the speed and accuracy of many hands and the skill of Mokil, willingly at work at a task that concerns us all, to protect our canoes with which we sail the seas and venture and get food for our people. The ocean floods and flows through our reef to the edge of our village. It fills our sheltered lagoon and is warm and safe for our children. It is as much a part of our village as the paths and the docks and the trees that give us shade. We measure our wealth by the land, by the food and copra it will produce. But it is hard to make a living by the little land we own. So we turn to the sea, build many canoes, learn to catch the fish found around Mokil and on the reef and in the lagoon, teach our children the ways of the wind, its quickness with a leaf, its power to push a canoe. Until a youth can make his own canoe, a safe adventure in the unknown sea, how can we say that he's a man? When Bellup decided to build a canoe, he chose a breadfruit tree in the forest. He calls on us to help him cut down the tree and rough out the hull. And we come and work with him. Bellup takes from the land a tree that has given fruit for years, one of his finest trees. And from its solid wood, he builds a canoe that can be used for many things. For fishing, carrying heavy loads across the lagoon, or even sailing to Ponape, 100 miles away. Our canoes and the steel tools with which they are made are prized above everything else. Every man on Mokil has a set of fine tools taken through trade with the Germans, the Japanese, and now the Americans. A trade that has gone on for 100 years. We care for our tools, cover them with coconut oil, and we keep them sharp. In the old days, we used shell tools for this work. It took many months, and the canoes were rough, not pleasant to the eye. Tools, skill, and our combined labor. With these, we finish in a single day the whole work of roughing out the hull. The hull goes to the sea to wash out the sap. several weeks of soaking in the lagoon, it is ready to become a canoe. Bella must do the work alone, day after day, planning, measuring, building up the sides so that they are high for the heavy seas. Here's where a man shows his hand and proves he's a man. The canoe will be known by its builder, Bella. Its speed and strength will be the speed and strength that Bella has given it. The work is slow. It will take months to finish. No man can give all his time to building a canoe. He must make a living too. So he works when he can. The most careful work is the shaping of the hull, cutting it to the right curve. This takes a skillful hand and a sure eye. No mistake here. And it is only when the canoe is finished that we will know what it can do, if it will be fast, if it will sail into the wind. The hull is finished. It is ready for the outrigger. We have come to help, and in one day we tie the outrigger in place. We work and talk, and each man chooses the job he likes best. This is the work for us. This is where we can show our skill. All the parts are tied together with coconut fiber, each in its special way. The sail is made of cloth. In the old days, before the trade, we used mats of pandanus, and our canoes were not so swift. Tools and cloth, the precious things of trade. And some of us even have machines, too wonderful to understand. Many things have come to us from other lands. This very design of canoe is new among us. We got it from the Marshall Islands a generation ago. Jamish's father knew the secret, but we have changed it, and now it's a Mokil canoe. Each morning we must cross the reef to reach the ocean. That's the reef Lokapash. The many parts of our reef and of our island, and even the coral heads in our lagoon have their names. We know them well. It's when the trade winds blow that we catch the bonito. The bonito is fast, and we must sail with all our speed, with all the wind our sails will take to get him to bite. We use feathered hooks for the bonito. This is what he likes best. But sometimes he is hard to find. When other fish are scarce, there are always the needlefish. Sometimes half the village goes to the reef to drive the fish into the nets. The children, too, come to help, to join in the excitement, but never the women. Everyone works together, and then the fish are divided among those that have helped. The needlefish can be caught at any time. They can always be found on the reef and in the lagoon, but their flesh is poor, not fat, and they have many bones. They are our food reserve. Along the outside of the reef, we fish with spears. That's Malin holding his breath and watching. Before we got glass for our goggles, few fish were caught with spears. This is work for men. Some of us, like Malin, can follow a fish down to 20 fathoms and stay for several minutes. men fish on the reef with their short poles and tiny hooks. They never use nets or spears. They stay on the reef where the water is shallow and the fish are small. They too watch for the fish. The boys learn to use their spears inside the reef. Already he knows how to push his lips over his nostrils to keep out the water. The fish come with the tide to feed on the reef, and we set our nets on the edge of the reef, a trap to catch the frightened fish as they try to escape to the ocean. A triggerfish. Some men have nets of their own, but they are not so large. These nets, the big ones, belong to the village. It's always been this way, fishing on the reef with nets we have made together. When a man needs fish, he asks his friends and relatives to help, and they borrow the net. And when the catch is made, each man gets his share, and then the net is returned to the king to keep. The dangerous conger eel. He hides in the reef and attacks without warning. When we find him, we kill him with spears, and he is good to eat. Most of the fish that we catch on the edge of the reef are parrotfish, many kinds and many colors. Flying fish. Here's the fish we love. They are fat and good to the taste. When we are lucky and have made a good catch, we salt and smoke them. They are caught by night. We make flares from coconut fronds and they fly to the flares. Jora makes a torch to light up the night. A signal, a lure in the night. We have gathered beyond the reef, and out of the blackness of the night they come to our flares. A few, then by the thousands. Flying fish everywhere. The banner of Christian endeavor and the American flag. It was over 60 years ago that the missionaries came to our island. They lived with us for 2 years. They told us of Christ and the rules of our church. Then they left. But we know what to do. Now we are all Christians and we all go to church 3 times a week and dress our best. We have our own preacher, one of our own people. And we never forget the rules of Christian endeavor. No drinking, no smoking, no tattooing or scarification, no native dancing, no black magic. If a man tries hard to follow the rules, even if he is a poor man, he can become a big man in church. When a man, even a poor man, gets up in church, then everybody listens. And in our church, women too have their say because they too are spirits saved through Jesus Christ. Christmas on Mokil, a time for games and celebration. Each Christmas we decide in public meeting the number of days that we will celebrate. For weeks, the children, even the youngest, have been practicing their dances and their songs. And then on Christmas Day, they dance for everyone to see. We make our children beautiful on Christmas. Fine clothes, perfume, flowers in the hair. A sight to warm our hearts. a time to be proud. The men, too, can do the dance of the missionaries. Some of us, the older men, remember the old dances of Mokil. And when the Americans asked, we showed them that we did remember. And the old men taught the young men their own dance. Most of our people have forgotten the old dances, just as they have forgotten our songs and our drums, the things of before. We are Christians. Yes, we must forget the old ways. This is our dance, the new dance of Mokil. Obey the 10 Commandments. But sometimes it is hard. Sometimes people fall down, smoke, commit adultery. The fine for adultery is $5. But that's how people are. How can you hold it against a man if he falls? We accept it. We gossip. It blows over. Christmas is the only time we play games. It's our best time. Once a year at Christmas, we race our canoes. This is the sport for men. For months, we have been building canoes for the race, and only new canoes can take part. Before, when we had more breadfruit trees and more time, we built racing canoes. They were light and thin, no good for fishing. But who can afford a canoe just for sport? Now, all of our canoes, even the fastest, are built for fishing too, for sailing beyond the reef. Off to the starting line across the lagoon, trying out their speed. They will start from the south end of the lagoon, 2 miles from the village, and they will race into the wind. They are ready. Now we shall see who has built speed and fame into the hull of his boat. There they go. Apana, out in front. And there's Jamish. Jamish is coming ahead. He is ahead. Jamish is the man, good sailor, clever builder of canoes. Apana is second. That's an honor, too, especially for a young man like Apana. With months of loving labor, with hard thought and a cunning hand, Jamish builds a canoe that wins the race of all Mokil. Jamish is proud of his canoe, and we are proud of him, and we will speak his praise. But the food, that's what we came for. And the best of all food is pork, good and fat. Pork and taro are the foods of the Kamati, the feast. When it's the new year, everybody joins in the Kamati. The rich and powerful families give pigs and taro, big taro, breadfruit and fish. The poor families give what they can. And then we divide it equally among all the families of Mokil. We celebrate by eating, by sharing our food when a baby is born or when a daughter is married. The sharing is good, but every man tries to do more than he can to impress his friends. When a man gives a kamatif for the whole island, we speak highly of him. Same as when he gives away his food to a work party. He's a big man. But this isn't right. We lose too much. So we make laws against kamatifs. But who can stop the rich families from doing what they have always done? From showing us how much they have? We only eat a small part of the food. Most of it we carry back to our homes. We need more taro pits. We waste our wealth at the Kamatif, and we must get it back. Day by day, a bitter struggle, digging out the coral gravel, together in a company, each man digging a hole a fathom deep and 2 fathoms square. We dig our taro pits in the center of the island, safe from the salt water. But only where the land is so poor, coconut will not grow, for coconut is money. From far off, the children bring grass for the pit. Children from many paninis. They too have formed a company. It's a game, but a good game. They are learning to work together for Mokil. Bag by bag, the women bring humus for the pit. The soil is poor. The plants are dying. Copra for trade, the work of the panini, gathering and husking thousands of coconuts. The women gathering the ripe nuts that have fallen and the men husking with all their speed. Here too we compete to show what we can do. But this is time away from making our living, building our canoes, our houses, working our taro. And then we cut out the clean white flesh, ready to be cured. We all give our time to this, many hours. The copra is laid out on our stone wharves to catch the sun. We built these wharves years ago for the copra trade. Soon the ship will be here. Tomorrow, next week, we never know, but we must be ready. More work for the trade. Fine mats carefully woven. It is company work, for no one works alone. But each woman will sell her own and give the money to her husband. The pandanus must be of the highest grade, more carefully cured in the fire and dried in the sun. That's what the traders want. Before the Americans came, we made our mats and our belts for ourselves, for our own use. But now the Americans buy what we make and even tell us of new things to make. And everyone, even those that have too little land to raise copra, can work for the trade and get some of the things they need. The finest fibers come from the young leaves of the coconut. They are bleached and dyed and made into belts and hats. Some to wear on Sunday, but most to sell to the traders. Fine fiber belts for the trade. For what user, what wearer, in what land. A fan for the trade, made with feathers and tortoise shell. This is easy work, not like making mats where a woman must bend over for hours at a time. We can finish a fan in 3 or 4 days, and if the fan pleases the trader, he may give as much as $3 for a single fan. We learned it from the Marshall Islands. Isn't it pretty? This is what the traders want. And the work goes on late into the night. It is getting time for the ship. Soon the ship must come. Ship day, and the work is done. The ship has come, and we lift our fronds to catch the wind. All day we rode to and from the ship. The traders are here. What will they tell us? What have they brought us? For months we have waited. We bring them our copra, our dried coconut meat, for their oil, their soap, and their food. They will make good use of it. They always take our copra, all that we can make, and then they come ashore. Our island must look its best. We are proud of our island, and these are big men. We look up to these big men. They know many things. Their country is rich and strong. We give them our welcome. We fly their flag and sing their song. The traders work fast. The ship must leave by nightfall. They have weighed our copra, and now they quickly measure our mats. The women bring everything they have made, and watch and wait, while the traders decide what the things are worth. It's the copra money that counts, but not everyone has copra to sell. Some of us have too little land to raise copra, and must look to our women with their mats and fans for the money we need. What shall we buy with the money we get? A lamp to light the night, an iron to press our clothes for church. This is what we've been waiting for. This is what the ship means to us. But this is not the same as the exchange in our paninis, the sharing at our kamateeps, working together, building a canoe and thatching a roof. For those that have much copra are the ones who will buy. Those that have little land can only admire. And each year there are more and more things to buy. More and more things that we learn to need and want. That is why our coconut orchards crowd our land, crowd our breadfruit, taro, bananas, and all the other foods we grow. But still, this must be, for copra is money. So, there goes Melvin with his adopted boy. He didn't get much. He hasn't much copra land. No wife, only half a man. That's Melton's land. That's how much he has. And that's Schwab's, the richest man on Mokil. It wasn't always like this. Long ago, the land was shared by everyone. It belonged to the king, and we worked it together. Then came the great typhoon about 200 years ago. The trees and the plants of our island were destroyed, and the people starved and warred among themselves. The 3 families that lived divided up the land. And as they had children, they redivided the land. But still, everyone shared. Then came the copra trade, and the coconut land became important. And now the boundaries are important. And every man guards his boundaries and his land against his neighbor. Brothers are afraid of brothers. There isn't enough land for all. A man must have land if he is to have money and respect. And because there is too little land, there is too much trouble. Here he comes with a boundary marker, a coconut sapling. Sheshi is afraid his neighbor might crowd in and cheat him. And he plants a new coconut tree on the edge of his land. a double line of trees to mark his boundary. And here is Lauren planting a double row of taro. He plants his taro close to that of his neighbor to keep his neighbor from pushing in. But that's no way to plant taro. Those taro will never grow big. See, these are planted right. Look at their size. Taro needs 4 feet between the rows. We have a law that a man owns the land under his breadfruit tree. Many years ago, Schwab planted a tree close to the boundary of Stephen's land. Schwab is rich, a big man on Mokil. And Stephen watched this tree of Schwab's reach out over his land and shade his taro patch. He protested, but Schwab is a big man. In anger, Stephen slashed the tree. Schwab has plenty of land. Why does he crowd on mine? I slashed the tree. How are we to live? Look at Harry. Joram bit his ear in a quarrel over land. Can we go on like this? But no one will listen to Stephen. Stephen's family is not poor. He is the oldest son and should get much of his father's land. But he quarreled with his father, and now his father threatens to give him nothing. Stephen tries to be one of the Panini. He cannot tell his true feelings. And almost every day he brings gifts of food to win his father. But the old man is bitter. He will always favor his younger son, Aaron. Stephen has lost his place in the Panini and lost his place in Mokil. He is a man without land. There is nothing he can do. And here's the home of old man Shimeon at the other end of the island. He's a different kind of man, lives by himself, away from the village. And this is Pipe, his new wife. She does most of the work for the Panini. She has to. Shimeon's son is older than she is, but he is too crippled to be much help. And Shimeon is too sick. He has the sickness that never goes away. Pipe had to marry Shimeon. She had no dowry land. Her father was too poor. The old man sits all day making cord, woman's work. And here are the daughters of Joram, winding rope. They know how to do many things, but they have no dowry land. Ruth is 16, old enough to marry. Apashag is 15. Will she marry next year? To whom? With what? And here is Shoash. He had no father and no land. He helped Schwab, the rich man. And another day Schwab will come and help him. Shoash works hard. He is a skillful worker. Yet he'll never become rich. He'll never have land. His mother had a little dowry land. There is enough for them to live on. But now Shoash is married and has children. What are we doing here in this poor land of Mokil? Should we leave Mokil, our home, and sail to Ponape? That's a beautiful island, large and rich. Yes, and live among the mud flats of the village on Ponape, settled by our forefathers when the land was free. Hemmed in under the cliff, cut off from the open sea, where even the church doesn't look like a church. But even this land is no longer free. We could work for wages on Ponape. They'll always hire carpenters from Mokil. But the wages are small, enough to pay our board, but not enough to buy land. Carpenters of Mokil, people of Mokil, but not the land of Mokil. No, we must stay here on Mokil, each one of us working as we have always worked, with what we have. But will it always be this way? Will it always be that if a man's father is poor, he too must be poor for all his days? Is there no other land, good land to which a man can go? Is copra the only thing we can trade? What about our skills? Our women trade their mats and fans, but there must be more than this. And what of our children? Will they find a way, a new way? We wonder.